This week's iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com and Netflix.com.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Ron from iFanboy, and we're here at Chris Eliopoulos' house, hoping he's going to give us an interview. Hey!
You... Get off my lawn, you fanboys! Get lost!
We should have called. Oh my god. Alright, I'm here in the suburbs of New Jersey with Chris Eliopoulos.
How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for allowing us into your the privacy of your home to talk today.
Yes, if I had a choice, you just set up shop right there.
So we're sitting here by the pool. I've got a wonderful apple martini, but we should get you a drink. Can we do something?
I'm sorry, your drink, sir.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So
The help these days, you know.
I know, they're just so
Minimum wage just doesn't cut it anymore.
Sad. All right, so one of the things that we're very curious about is how you got into the business of lettering. Like, what was your entry into the?
You want the full long story? I mean,
bullet points, like, you know.
I was into graphic design, Fashion Institute of Technology. I took a night course with Gene Colan, famous,
Gene
right?
Colan, Gene the Bean.
And he took us on a field trip to Marvel one day, and it was the day that I found out I had to have an internship for my next year. Yeah. So I just we went in there, and every other place I had gone to, advertising places, they all had suits and ties and stuff. I went into Marvel, and it was funny, a lettering guy who I found out later, but he was walking through with flip-flops, ripped sweats, and a ripped t-shirt. And I said, this is the place. I've got to work here.
Now, this wasn't recent. I mean, this was like, because now people are a lot more casual at workplaces. Yeah, so in 89, actually, that was being a big kind of, like the casual workplace.
I mean, it's still fairly casual. I mean, people go to in jeans and stuff like that. But that was, I mean, there was a time, everybody just was sitting there like, you'd come to work in shorts and flip-flops. I mean, that was it. But so I said, I got to do this. And so I applied for an internship, and they were fascinated that I didn't know anything about comic books. And so I got an internship, and I worked for an editor part-time, and I worked in production. And by the time I graduated, they'd already hired me. I was there 2 years total. I wanted to make more money, and the only way to do that was in the lettering department. So I was somebody left, and the guy recommended me, helped me out and got me the job. And so I started lettering. Within a year of that job, I was already getting enough freelance work that I was making more money at night than I was during the day, so I was like, I got to just make a choice, and so I went freelance.
So the companies have a whole department dedicated to lettering. I mean, is that still true now?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
They have a production, but everything is it's what happened was when everything was done by hand, you would have to make corrections in house. Like you couldn't just mail the pages back and forth with the lettering guys. So I learned how to hand letter and mimic all the other lettering guys and women. So that's what they had a staff for. Now with the computer lettering, you don't need that because they email back and say, here are the changes, fix it. You've already got the fonts, and you don't need anybody in-house to fix anything. So
that's one thing that we were curious about was like how the process is now and how it's changed from back then with the advent of the digital age and stuff like that.
It's a lot different in the process. It's not necessarily different in the art of it, but the way we go about doing things is a lot different. And that, like I said, in the time we used to, I'd sit in house, and there was the famous one. What's his name? Barry Windsor Smith was doing that Wolverine,
the Weapon X one?
Weapon X story.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
Marvel Comics Presents.
Yeah, and Jim Novak was lettering it. And what happened was he was really particular and would rewrite even after the book was lettered. So I can go through this book and I can see all the changes that I made because he would just rewrite stuff. Now they do it nowadays, but it's so easy. The editor just comes back and says, fix it. And you've already got it typed out and you change it. But at the time, then you just basically had to mimic what they were doing.
So when you started, you would actually get the page, the drawn page, the drawn and inked page.
For the most part, well, no, it wasn't inked by that point. Okay. In the old days, what they would do, it's old days already. I'm old. What they do is, unless it was late. If it was late, they would give you a vellum overlay and you would letter it, and then they would paste it up later.
Right.
I would get the little art boards, like you get the penciled pages. I would ink it, letter it, and then I would literally mail it directly to the inker.
Wow.
And then he would take it.
Who does the word balloons themselves? Like, does the artist do the word balloon, or do you do the word balloon even like now and digitally? Or?
Yeah, no. The way it usually runs is you'll get a script. Yeah. You get placements for the most part. Normally, I don't use them anymore. I've been doing this so long that I don't need anybody to tell me where the stuff goes. I can help tell the story, and I know the way to do it.
Plus, you're a creator yourself, so you have.
Yeah, I sort of know. I mean, even I was talking to Ed Brubaker, as I drop a name. We were talking, and he said, "Well, you're a cartoonist. You do this." He goes, "That's why I want you on Daredevil. You sort of know what to do without being told what to do." But anyway, so Ed was telling me one day that he liked the fact that I knew what I was doing. So I don't normally go with places, but they'll give us placements, basically like just a Xerox copy of saying, "Here's where everything should go." Yeah. I do it, I letter it, I balloon it, everything is me on that process. The sound effects, everything is me. Nobody really says, and then the editors will obviously come back to you and say afterward,
make some changes here.
Here's what I want to fix, and this looks horrible, and you suck, and you're not getting paid, and that kind of stuff.
So going back to the hand lettering days, like, did you have really good handwriting to start with?
If you talk to my mother, I used to fail out of. We'd have penmanship classes in school. I would get notes home all the time. He needs to work on his handwriting, but it's a totally different beast because you're working with different tools, and it's almost like drawing when you're hand lettering because I'm designing type as you go.
They're typefaces.
Yeah, it's almost like calligraphy. So it's totally different. It's not from like if I scribble a note. Totally different, because you're really taking the.
So you don't like write notes to your kids to do the laundry in like the comic book lettering?
No, I mean it's like nobody can read my handwriting. It's awful. It's the funniest thing that I have like the worst handwriting, and yet that's what I did. Oh, irony, you bitter pill.
Yeah. So then taking that forward to the digital age, because I guess when you're hand lettering, I guess you have an idea, you can measure out the space, but with the computer, it's got to be so much easier to manage the flow of text.
I mean, at the time, because ink is permanent, so I mean, you could white it out, but you've got a balloon that's in the upper right-hand corner, and you're writing out a word, and boom, you run out of space. You need to sort of really make sure that and after a while, I got good at it. You could sort of tell and make it work. But now it's great. I mean, you go, that doesn't fit right. Let's just. So now, how does that interplay between you and the script and the editorial staff and the writer? I mean, if you get a script from Brubaker who is particularly wordy, and can you look at that script and be like, oh, that's not going to fit on the page I got, and then, or do they think about that already, or? Most guys are pretty good. I mean, the biggest one usually is Bendis, is just because he's just so verbose and he always wants a lot of balloons and stuff, and a lot of that is just finagling it and making. That's the great thing about digital too, is that you can sit and play with it and make it work, and then they can even come back afterward and say, like sometimes like I would put balloons going down, and then Bendis would say, no, I want it across the top, and I could redo it, but. It does make that easier now, that you don't have to stress so much that it's permanent and you can't move it.
Undo it.
Yeah, you can undo it. The undo button is
Control Z or Option Z, whatever your Mac term is.
Mac term.
I'm a PC guy, so you never get in a situation where you're actually editing the words. I mean, is it kind of like the script, the Bible, and they say don't touch it at all?
No, because obviously, you don't change it. But sometimes like I'll know that it's going to get changed. Like stupid stuff. Sometimes they miss the theirs and the its and the
typos.
And sometimes you just I get nailed on it. Like there's a running joke in the industry at Marvel. The word is all right. It's not all right, one word. It's two words. And so I would get in the script. And instead of saying, causing my trouble later on, I just change it to two words because I know I'm going to get it back from proofreading and it's going to make me change it. Right. So I've learned there's certain things. I mean, I obviously wouldn't change dialogue, and you don't change any of that
plot
stuff.
Or anything like
that. No. I mean, plus, everybody gets to look at it now. Right. So, like in the case of, say, Daredevil, it goes to Ed to look at. I mean, he gets, all the writers and the artists, for the most part, get to look at it and say, here's what I don't like, here's what I like. I'll get notes from Ed, from Brian. You get notes directly from them as well as editorial. So everybody's in the process and they already can tell, what they want and tell me what they need. So, it saves us all a little trouble. Well, I mean, you see some of these writers, they do it all the time. I mean, it's funny because we did that one time, and I remember one of my guys had done it, and I fixed it. I changed it to all right, I think, at the time. And I think it was an Andy Diggle script, and he got really mad, and he was like, what is it about letters that they always got to change this? I'm like, dude, I just don't want the extra work. Is that okay? I'm tired of having to change it again over and over again. Yeah. Cut me a little break,
Is there a lot of kind of silo pride amongst the writers and the artists, the letterers, the inkers, the colorists? I mean, what is it about letters that they want to do this? And you say, what is it about writers? They got to be so verbose. Like, do you guys often, or is it really not that?
I don't know.
Competition amongst them.
No, I don't think it's kind of, for me anyway. I'm pretty the humble guy because I know I'm just, like I'm the key grip. I'm the guy that holds onto the sound boom, at the time because they're telling the story, and for the when I'm lettering it, I'm just telling their story. I'm not really trying to be the star, and I try to stay out of it. So I don't, have any contention. I mean, I love writers who decide to have like 5 silent pages. I mean, believe me, because I get paid for those anyway. Nice. So it's like, sweet. There goes the next DVD on Netflix. So you're getting the ad in.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for that. So,
I'm a whore. See?
So in terms of the actual time to do the work, I mean, so when you get the script, you get the art, how long does it take until you're done with your piece? I mean, or how long does it take you to letter a book? Process-wise.
It's funny. It's sort of come full circle. When I first was lettering, I picked up a lot of speed quickly because it becomes rote. Like it's like
process.
Yeah, you just keep going. And so I got to a point where I was hand lettering, which is insane to me to think about this day. At one point, I was doing about 30 books a month. So if you think, obviously, it's a book a day, and I was doing by hand, and it was that boom time with the speculator market and everything. So they were putting out, it was toilet paper, and it was just, but they needed warm bodies to letter it, and I was lettering everything. I mean, I was doing like image kicked in, and I was doing everything.
And then seems like lettering's paid off pretty well for you. I mean, it's been.
Oh, this is all my wife. What happened was, as I was moving to digital, there was a point. It was always a crossover where I was, half digital, half by hand, and I started to slow down a lot. My hand lettering started to really slow down. And the last book that I finally was doing by hand was Savage Dragon, which I'd done for like 106 issues. But at the point I was getting the book, it was taking me about 4 days to letter.
Oh, wow.
And normally I could do almost a book a day. And now it took 4 days to do it. And yet now I can letter a book in about 4 hours in digital form. And so I literally had to, say, Eric, I can't do it anymore. I can do it digitally, but I can't do it by hand. It's just killing me. I can do.
Oh, so is that why he started doing it himself? Or?
Well, he got John Workman to do for a while, but it was sort of not working out because he wanted things done overnight, and John was doing other work, and he couldn't just do it. So he had me letter it digitally for a couple issues, and I was actually contemplating going back and hand lettering it, but I have so much work going on, and so what I did was I lettered it by computer for a couple issues, and then he said, "Screw it, I want to do it by hand," and he went back and did it. But I remember the last day I finished that last page, and I called Kenny Lopez and gave him the call and said, "This is it. I just finished my last book." And it was sort of like a sad moment. I had a few drinks, and I was like, "Wow, this really sucks."
It was a long run,
Well, because it's like, but think about it. Beyond my run, it was going from the 30s, the 20s. I mean, whenever the comic book started, it was done by hand, and now that was it.
So do you not do any hand lettering at all anymore? Or?
I do my own web strip, and I do it by hand. But I haven't been doing it regularly. I was actually, I pulled out some pens recently, and I was thinking about it, and it was fun to just sit and play with it. I was like, wow, it was so easy to go right back into it. I don't think I could do a book in a day, but it was definitely fun to do again. So I miss it, and I miss that because it was great. You could just turn on the music, and you'd go and do 10 pages in a day or a half day, and your mind is gone. Like I could put the TV on now. I really can't for the most part when I'm working. So.
So if you look back at the history of your career, is there one issue or one series that you're like, I lettered the shit out of that book? I mean, like, is there one that you're really proud of? Or
I think I'm really proud of Savage Dragon just because Eric made me so inclusive in the process. Like everything was, in the beginning when we first started working together, I literally would do sound effects on a separate sheet and fax them to him. And say, do you approve?
Because sound effects in that book are awesome.
Well, he was very particular. I mean, it came from the Walt Simonson Thor with John Workman, and Walt would work with John the same way, sort of like, here's what I want, and I want this, I want that. And so he was very inclusive, and so it was a very big collaborative process. It was more than any other book that I've done. Like, X-Men, you get a script, and it's like, I never see these guys. I never talk to them.
You don't hang out with Joss,
No, I mean, he and I, we're on the movie set together hanging out. But, me and Eric, we were on the phone. My wife and his wife would make fun of us. We were like the girlfriends. We were on the phone all day long. Our bills, because he was on the West Coast, I'm on the East, our phone bills were killing us. Like the money I was making.
Before the days of the all-inclusive, call anytime.
Like, you could Skype them or email them. We were literally on the phone for hours. I'd be lettering the book on the phone with him as you spill your drink. You slob.
Again.
This guy sucks. See what happens when you drink too much, kids? Don't do it. But no, me and Eric, we were such good friends, and that's the other sad part about ending the book, was ending our
collaboration.
I mean, we were always talking because we were always talking about the book and where it was going to go, and now it's more him on his own, and I don't really have that. He does it with other people, but I don't have that process, so that's depressing too, is not having that that connection.
You know, as reading comics, we were fans throughout the 90s, stuff like that, and for whatever reason, I've always been interested in lettering. I like
you and Augie.
Yeah,
you
bizarre.
need to get a drink and like
just
get a room or something.
Did you see that caption? Hey, but I remember through the years is that really it was Tom Orskowski and your name, Chris Eliopoulos, that I kept on seeing over and over again.
In the 90s, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, but before that, you know, it was Todd Klein. I mean, these are guys.
I remember Todd Klein. Yeah.
But if you go back, you know, Gaspar was the old guy who was like a genius that nobody knows about. There was a guy that nobody really knows, and his daughter Sue Crespi is working at Marvel. He worked in the Marvel bullpen. His name was Danny Crespi. He did most of the cover copy you saw through the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Wow.
This other guy with Maury, and they did some great work. And while I was on staff there, I literally took a compilation. I just found all the stuff, Xerox, and I created like a Bible of cover copy that these guys. And there's like people you don't even know, you know, that have done this, and they are the Untitled.
Yeah,
I mean, there were so many guys that were working at the time that, like, even in the 90s, that nobody really knows, and it's so sad now. Like, nobody knows these people. Like, if you turn around and say Janice Chang, people go, who?
Right.
You know, or Sam Rosen or Joe Rosen, or, you know, any of these guys that, you know, Phil Felix, like, people go, who? Jim Novak. Jim Novak, I don't even know where he is. We talk every once in a while. I think he's like working at a florist now, you know. I mean, but, you know.
But it's, I think it's interesting because then there's been the Richard Starkings of the world and you and stuff like that who really evolved with the process of lettering and turned it into this kind of industry where you're doing 30 books a month and you're you know, working with other letters.
It's good and
like
bad. I mean, I don't know if we've evolved as, you know, it was just, I was trying to survive. I mean, like, I saw where it was going. You know, Richard saw it, got the ball rolling, and I saw where it was going because people were like, hey, this makes life easier.
Right.
I can make changes then. And that's the other big change in the digital era is we're making changes up until, you know, the final moment. Like, I mean, on this past Friday, we were literally pushing to get Daredevil out, and like I was lettering the book up until Friday at 2 o'clock.
And now, what issue was? I mean, that was.
This is 98, I think. So it'll be out in a few weeks.
Yeah. So that,
actually,
that
by the time this airs,
probably
it'll be out.
Yeah.
But
so that close. Wow.
That's the other thing is it also affords, but also people tend to take advantage. It affords you a lot more time to push the envelope as how long you can let this thing go.
Right.
You know, I mean, it used to be minimum you needed about a month before the book came out to get it to the printer because it was mailing stuff. Now you email the files. They put it up on an FTP and you've got it in
an instant,
in 3 seconds.
And now do you get every page of the book, or do you sometimes get a couple pages at a time, or is it?
So it depends. Most of the time it is piecemeal because, you know, like I said, this week we were just, the artists it was getting penciled, inked and colored, and I was lettering it as we were going along. So I'd get like 5 pages on Monday, 6 pages on Tuesday, 3 more on Wednesday, you know, and it was kept going. But that's the joy, not the joy of it, but not for me anyway. But
it gets close, right?
But what it does is it affords everybody sort of that extra ability to have the time they need to really get it the way they want it before it goes. So, you know, it's great. I mean, it makes me want to pull my hair on people in production because, you know, they're there on Friday night until like 8 o'clock trying to get these books out.
Watch
and you feel bad, but it gives you that opportunity to rewrite. I mean, I know there's a couple of writers that consider the lettering, like I'll composite the book together with the art and send it off, and they let the writer look at it. The writer will consider it a first draft, and so they go, okay, I want to come back, and we'll even get balloons that say dialogue to come. You know, we'll figure it out when I see it together. I'll figure out what I want there. So it gives them the creativity and it affords them that luxury. So it's good on that. I mean, it sucks for me at times, but you know, it is good in the final product that everybody gets what they want, and you don't kind of. You know, we used to get those moments where you would put a book out and go, oh man, if only, you know, that was slightly done differently, or, you know, there, you know, mistakes were made, or they missed a typo.
A lot of Monday morning quarterbacking or Thursday morning quarterbacking when the book comes out.
Usually you never see an error or problem until the book sees print. Everybody will look at a book and it'll go through. And like, I mean, the funny one in Civil War is that we looked through the first issue. There was, I mean, this is minor. Somebody's name was like Miss Marvel. It was the period was missing, and everybody missed it the day it came out. We looked and said, "Son of a," and it was there. So
I'm sure somebody on the internet caught it too.
Everybody catches it. It's like it's Easter eggs. You know? Everybody catches the film errors and all that stuff. They catch
the mic being in shot.
Yeah, you know, wait, this shirt was this way before, and now it's this way.
Are there any real noticeable flubs that are memorable, where it's like, oh, we really screwed out of that one, or anything?
Oh God, it's gotten to the point where you can catch stuff even at the printer. Stuff has, you know, been oops, that was not good. But there's so many nowadays. There's so many proof proofread. You know, they've got a proofreading staff. They've got every editor. The book goes to a separate editor to read out, a readout editor they call it, who doesn't have anything involved in the process, and they'll sign off on what they may find. So we've been lucky. I mean, there have been a couple of noticeable errors in the past that were done that weren't caught. You know, that famous Wolverine issue that I don't remember what it was, but there was like, I guess, a racial epithet or something like that.
I remember that one.
And that came through, but
I forgot about that.
Yeah, at this point there's so many people and there's such scrutiny. Yeah. You know, it's really hard to really get something blatantly through. Well,
I would imagine that would be a lot tighter at Marvel, but you don't work just only with Marvel. I mean, you do some.
I do some Image. I've done some Dark Horse stuff. I used to do DC, but now that they've got their in-house staff.
So one of the things that attracted Marvel to you when you initially hired was that you weren't really into comic books and you're more into strips. So now, you know, several years later, like as you're lettering pages, like do you find yourself getting into the story in Daredevil, or you just kind of just roll through it,
well, you know, I always like to read through the book as I do it, just because it helps. If it helps me tell the story better, like if I know, like, you know, sometimes, you know, you're not reading and there's like, they'll just put like extra bold if there's a fight scene, and you sort of like there's no crescendo to it. You can just make it all everybody screaming at each other and just and like you sort of you got to make sure where the peak of that story is and maybe work up to it sometimes. But I always want to know what's going on because it'll help tell the story and you know, lead the eye through the page. So I've always tried to make sure that I read. So
you're somewhat involved, but it's not like you're not like you're collecting comics now. I mean, it's still just.
Oh no, you know, I get the books that I get. I literally I don't. Sometimes I look at them to check. You know, quality control type of thing. You look through and think, oh man, that didn't print right, or there was something there. But I tend to just take it to my father and give it to him. He bags them, boards them in boxes.
Oh, nice.
It's the funniest thing. He's turned into Mr. So if you can ever get him free stuff, he's always looking for freebies. He wants the bags, the boards, and the boxes. And he's got his little, you know, list, and he writes it down. He's got his little computer program, and he logs it in, and so like it's a joke. And he's like, "You're going to thank me one day when you can sell all this stuff." And
the great reward of comic collecting, right?
Yeah, I'm like, dream on. I'm like, I said, don't look at the numbers. You know, whatever it says in the book, you're lucky if you get half of that these days. But he loves to collect it, so.
I probably have more in common with him than with you. With my 30 long boxes.
all my friends that are in comic books, it's like Mecca. They all go down to my father's house and they pray in his basement. You know, because he blows everybody away. He built shelving, so he's got a whole room. It's just wall to wall shelving with long boxes, and he's got alphabetized by company. And you know,
awesome.
Oh, it's sick. It's scary. I don't know what happened. He's
that's cool.
He's a freak.
Oh, his dad's storing all those books. How funny is that? But you know what? Watching this interview makes me want to try my hand at lettering. Here, let me know what you think.
Hey, check out my cool new website that I registered at www.godaddy.com. Enter coupon code iFanboy and you can save 10%.
Yeah, I still need some work, huh? Oh well, I better get back to the interview.
Well, normally they'll give me a Word document for the script. They'll send me scans, which are TIFFs, and then we've worked over the years. We created a template, a Marvel template, which is the right size, and we put guidelines on here. So what happens is I'll get the script, and this is the way I'll usually get it, is in single lines of type that I can then move and break where necessary. When I get the artwork, which I have, I can just everything on here I've done function keys. Like I've actions up the wazoo for everything. So like in this case, if I wanted to add some artwork, I click on, now I've got a bunch of layers for the different layers of the lettering stuff, and I can literally just hit Shift F1. It'll ask me, you know, of all the books where, you know, what I'm doing, and so I can take pick the page that this is. In this case, it's Ultimate Powers, number 6, page 2. And what it does for me, the action will actually lock it into the right spot, so it's definite. Like, I mean, this is exactly the way it'll appear. The colors will get that same scan, and he'll color. So then our artwork, so I can, when I letter on this, it will follow exactly when we put the two together. Later on, I'll show you how we do that. But then they also send me, like I was saying earlier, the placements. Right. So in this case, you know, we've got a caption up front on the top, as you can see as I give away all this story. So then what I'll do is I'll just go up and sort of just give it the basic spot. And most of the time I'll put these into the areas, you know, the panels that they're going to be in. Just sort of I know and then I've got a preset made balloons. I've also created a whole backlog of balloons that I use for specialty items, and that I can just pick and choose and use when I want. I'll just copy them over and bring them in, and like, so I can literally just, if I was going to do a radio balloon, just bring it in there, put it on to wherever it needs to be, scale it, and what I can do now is just I click on the tail layer, choose a box, and create it. Well, I can just put that there, and that's good to go. Now, in the case of a balloon, I just click on which portion I want the white part. So I'm going to create the white part first. I use the Ellipse Tool in this case because it's a smaller balloon. I can scale it out, move it, center it. Again, with the function key, I've got a function that I hit the button and it creates the bottom part of the balloon. I drag it down to the other layer, and I've got myself a balloon. And I just want to put the tail. I use the pen tool, which is an Illustrator thing, and create myself a little tail. And then the other big thing that you want to do is the sound effects. Now, I've created a bunch myself. I created a bunch of fonts, including sound effect fonts.
So you use all your own fonts? I mean,
I use only mine, except for like titles and stuff where I've bought fonts, and so I'll use those specifically. But like all the stuff that's the heavy-duty, down-to-earth, like comic book lettering, it's my fonts. I don't sell them. I know Richard sells it, and they're out there everywhere, and it would be cool to see my stuff out there. But the only people that I've ever done it for is Marvel. I've licensed a few to them, and then to their licensees, like if they want to use them, I'll let them use them. Like I think the newest one, they're going to be doing the Marvel stamps, so they're going to be using actually this font on the Marvel stamps, so when they come out, they'll actually, like the canceled ones are going to have my font on there, so it's kind of like, wow, that's going to be freaking cool. But so in this case, like, I could just pick, like I said, I've got hundreds of fonts that I've created, so I'll put it in the font that I want to do. So you can see it comes out normally black and white. Now with the Illustrator, you can create outlines. With sound effects, it's mostly just sort of resizing, maybe stacking them a little, just making them interesting to look at visually. You can do things like scale them up and down, or skew them, or even in certain cases you can kind of squash them into certain things. So you've got like a 3D effect. And what I'll do is I'll kind of put it into the frame and scale it how I want. And then what I can do is just color it, and then what I normally do is create a layer behind it, like the balloons, of a black that's got a thickness to it. I'm always open at the end because I also composite it and the colorings, like at this final stage. So I'll get the color art, and it's called Indesign is the program. It's another Adobe product, and I'll bring in the artwork and then the lettering on top of it. And sometimes I'll look at it and go, okay, yeah, purple sound effect is not really working with a purple background or whatever it may be, and so I'll change it, or maybe the editors will ask for it. So I've got a pure shape now. This is one item and this is another. So if you separated it, it's just two items that just happen to be stacked on top of each other. And of course the undo key is always also our best friend. Now when that page is done, I will hide the artwork because I don't want to see this anymore. Like I'll do that, and so I'll have the lettering and stuff on there. Then what I do is, like I said, I go into InDesign, which is the case like I've got here as an Astonishing X-Men. Now I'll get the color art, and I've got the layers. So they're on separate layers, and so like you can see is I can just take it off and just show you. But what it does is literally this gets made into a PDF. Like a high-res PDF. This is it. I mean, this is what the printer gets. This file. My stage of it is so I can literally just go. So this is literally the files that I pass along to them. They will be using. As long as the artwork stays the same size and the lettering is on the same size, it falls in perfectly. That's why I can get in really tight on those things. Years ago, we didn't do that. If you saw, there's a lot of issues where you would see balloons not touching the borders and things were off or missing a page because they didn't line up. So this is the one benefit. A good benefit is sort of we get that out of it now. So that's like pretty much my day over and over and over. It's Groundhog's Day around here. We constantly just do the same thing over and over and over again.
Groundhog Day, I love that movie. Screw this lettering crap, I'm gonna go rent that. I'm gonna go to www.netflix.com/iFanboy where I can get a 2-week free trial. I'm gonna rent Groundhog Day, and you know what? While I wait on the free shipping, I'm gonna watch the rest of this interview.
So in addition to the lettering, you have some of your own properties, your own titles that you've done, that your own comics titles. Yep. And I remember first knowing that you did that stuff with the Desperate Times strips and Savage Dragon.
Right.
So can you tell me about that? How did that,
That was just Eric is a fan of old time comic books, and I guess the old time they would always have other things besides the lead story. They would always have like a wrote story, like a written out story, and they would have cartoons that had nothing to do with the main story. It was always like goofy cartoony stuff. And he knew I wanted to do this. And he knew from our conversations every single day. Yeah. And so one day he just literally said, okay, you got 2 pages, do whatever you want. By the way, it's due tomorrow. And so I literally made it up on the spot. It just basically took me and my friend and from our college years and sort of just made something up and just worked with it. Because every time it was always like a race to the finish line, because he was monthly at that point. And I'd be doing all this other work, I'm lettering 30 books a month and then go write and draw a couple pages, and it was just killer. But I had built up enough, and then eventually said, can I do a book? He said, yeah, do a book. And he one of the Image founders, so he pretty much can get what he wants. So he just said, do it. So we did a few issues. Which I have in my collection. Wow, really? Yeah, I bought them. You sick man. You're the one, huh? Yeah, I'm the one. You and my mom. So I kind of took a break from that, and then I went back to it a little on my own. Yeah, I self-published it for 4 issues, and then. But what happened was I was getting so much work, and at the time I had kids, and you sort of go, look, I need to pay for the house. I need to pay for these kids. Yeah. I need to, I was making maybe a couple $100s on the Desperate Times. I was the
artistic endeavor doesn't become worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it for myself, for my own well-being, because I was getting nuts when I'm not doing that kind of stuff. I make myself crazy. I need that outlet. Yeah. But what was happening was, I gotta buy diapers. I gotta, and they're paying the bills, so I had to do it for a while. And then, I had, luckily enough, I was almost running out of work, and then I got called into Marvel by Bill Jemas to talk about the computer lettering and maybe setting an in-house staff up. And he said, I really liked your stuff from Image, your Desperate Times stuff. Let's do something. And he actually signed it for the Epic line at the time. It was like one of the first books to get signed before that
imploded. Yeah.
But he had said, besides that, I want you to do a creator-owned book. Your creator-owned book, I want you to do a Marvel property, and I want you to do something else, like come up with something else as well.
just do something.
Figure something out. Let's see what you can do. Maybe a new strip or something. Because he was trying to expand the marketplace, which is a lot of what publishers are trying to do nowadays. And so I pitched him the Franklin Richards idea, and he's like, I don't even freaking know who that is. And he goes, nobody is going to buy this thing because I don't even know who he is. So why would the market play it out? And I said, but I know what I can do with it. And I sort of gave it to him, and he was like, man, I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. So a year or two later, the Franklin thing kind of languished. The Desperate Times stuff fell apart. They were talking about the Marvel Age line of books, and so I was in C.B. Cebulski's office, and we were talking about it, and I said, why don't you guys, this Franklin book would be perfect for it. And he's like, what is it? And I literally pitched him on the spot. I just said, it's Home Alone meets the superheroes. It's Franklin. His parents are always gone. I mean, how awful these parents. They let a blind woman babysit their kid. I mean, how responsible is that? While they're in the negative zone. While they're off getting killed somewhere. Awful parents. And I thought, well, if I was Home Alone and Dad had like a rocket, I'd be taking that thing out for a ride every single day. So I was literally pitching it to see, not pitching, I was just telling him the story. And in the middle of it, he's picking up the phone, he's dialing, and I thought, God, this must really suck because he doesn't even want to talk to me. He's not even listening. And he goes on the phone with David Gabriel, who's the marketing guy from Marvel, and said, I've got a new book for the Marvel Age line. Yeah. And this is it. And so I started to work with Mackenzie Cadenhead, but nobody knew what it was. Like I was sort of like a comic strip, but in comic book format. It wouldn't, the parents wouldn't really be there, and they were like, what are you talking about? And so they were trying to pitch it to bookstores, and and they didn't know what it was. So they finally said, why don't we just do almost like you know how the Simpsons were sort of on the Tracy Ullman show, like
the short
segments?
Little, yep.
That's where let's just do backups in the middle of this of Power Pack. And we did it, and we got a better reaction from our strips than the Power Pack stuff. But no, so we did that, and so we could show it to people. This is what we can do, and so the format was so good that they like the 5-issue, the quick in and out, and it's great for 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. But I've been hearing a lot of adults like it as well.
I buy it. It's on my pull list.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you.
But at the same time, a lot of our audience have said, because our audience skews kind of our older guy, but a lot of them have said, I've given it to my kids,
right,
and they love it. So
I always try to make it look sort of like The Incredibles, in that the adults and the kids can like it, and everybody seems to get something out of it. I always try to throw in like a gag or a joke that maybe an adult would get, the kid would not quite get, or sort of give that experience for everybody. And then I always hate being lopped into the kids fair thing. Like I really do try to just make, and just because everybody can read it, it's not necessarily bad. That I just wish that it's got a stigma. As a lettering, I always know stigma, because we are like we are the scum at the bottom of the ocean of the comic book world. I get it, and I have no problem with it. It's wonderful. I don't care, but it's sort of like that when you just put that into like its own little place and nobody ever gives it a try. Like I would love to see what people who read Powers would think of it, even though it's not the same thing. I know,
but it's got that almost that postmodern humor to it, that you're acknowledging that these are awful parents, and look at this world he lives in, and look at and with the
they
rays
really are
and stuff
absentee
like
that. Like Reed. I mean, the way I take on him is he's so busy in his mind thinking things up. He is the absent-minded professor, and he doesn't really pay attention. Like he doesn't. Franklin's over there playing with like knives, and he's just going, "In a minute, son. In a minute."
X equals.
As a parent, I do that without the mathematical equations. I'm sitting there working, and they're like, "Look, Dad," and I'm playing with big sharp knives. And okay, let me just finish this page. So it's like I get that, and that's what he does. And then Sue, she's, I guess, is a better parent than Reed. Like she sort of tries to be the mom, but it's sort of like when you're turning there and going, I gotta go save the world from Galactus. Right. Hey, blind lady, could you watch
doesn't get any trouble?
Or like a dog from the moon. Can you beam him up to the moon for a little while? Like what do you do? Like you live in the Baxter Building, which is always under attack from bad guys. Like, wouldn't you remove your kid?
Put him in like a day school or something.
Yeah,
private school.
I don't get it. So it's just the funniest thing that they. But I guess the way the comics portrayed women in the '60s, like they were really like second class is now like. Parenting is like the second-class citizenry. Yeah, these poor kids, Power Pack. The parents are so oblivious that their kids have powers. It's like, dude, they're flying out of your house
with a rainbow.
You don't even know where they are. You send the kids to the room and they go to bed and they don't know where their kids are.
It's those commercials. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are?
I really think they should do a series on the legitimate FF with they take these kids away. They say you are bad parents. Just get rid of them.
Social services come.
Yeah, come on. Look what you're doing. You got a dog and a blind woman watching this kid while you're off blowing up half the building. That's not a good environment. Yeah. But they seem to like it. I don't know, man.
Well, it's a great book and it's a great concept. And I assume the digest just came out recently.
The digest came out back in I think February. Yep. We've got, by the time this comes out, we've already got the newest one, which is the World Be Warned. It's supposed to look like World War Hulk.
Nice.
Franklin, so we sort of tried to cash in on the everything's
grab
Hulk
it by
now.
accident.
Yeah. Hey, look, there's Hulk. Hulk is on the cover. We got to take it. It's a crossover. Hulk does appear in there, but so I'm trying to do. They keep asking me to pitch some other stuff, but we still have more Franklin to go. We still got a couple more, and they said as long as I want to keep doing it, we'll do it. So.
Cool, excellent. Well, we love the book. Absolutely love your lettering. I mean, you letter the majority of the books I read. So, and we really appreciate you giving the time to talk to us. So, thank you very much, and thank you for the
drinks. Get off my lawn.
Wow, that was a really great interview. How's your lettering going at home? I hope you're doing better than I am. Well, anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us, contact@ifanboy.com. Or you can call our voicemail line, 1-888-FANBOYS. I had to make sure I get it right. Sometimes we mess that up. That's 1-888-326-2697. We may use your questions or comments on a future show, so make sure they're exciting and fun. Also, you can head over to ifanboy.com and you can post about this episode. You can watch previous episodes, whatever you want to do. You can also go to our forums at revision3.com. So do that. Brag about who you like for lettering, and if you say me, you never know. You might get a little special iFanboy surprise. And I think that's it. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.